I always like that gospel. I can see Peter. In my mind, Peter is a Scotsman, and that's how I always portray him. But I can see him as a poor Scotsman, just indignant that he must keep forgiving and forgiving and forgiving. He is just overwhelmed at the thought of 7 times forgiving. And then to hear his Lord say, not 7 times, 77 times. And that's what brought me to this lesson on what is wisdom. The whole of the third of the Old Testament is called the books of wisdom, including the book of wisdom on wisdom herself. And we read from these books very often. At this time of the year, last year, we read from the great Sirach, the final writer of the books of wisdom. Throughout January, we heard from King David and his son King Solomon, who asked God to be given the great gift of wisdom and was said to have been the wisest of all men in the past and in the future. No man will ever be wiser. And yet, Solomon, so wise, he made mistakes. He sinned against God despite all of that wisdom. So, what then is wisdom? Wisdom, if you read between the lines of Sirach and listen to the descriptions of the books of wisdom, is knowing, seeing, having the temperament and the perspective of God, which, as a human, this is impossible. But what is possible for each and every one of us is to look at each situation long and thoughtfully, and then to pray on it so as to have the prayerful, thoughtful, mindful perspective of God, and to never assume to know God's mind, nor to know what He would think, except for where the commandments and the law give us direction. God isn't an impulsive, flighty dude who goes off on a moment's notice or just jumps into a fad or a trend. No, God definitely isn't into trendy things. The great Almighty never did bell-bottoms, and He certainly never had a pet rock. He made rocks, so He knew them all when they were little babies. He didn't ever get involved in the Yanni versus Laurel debate. But He sees all things, hears all things, knows all things, and comprehends all things. Nothing is too big or too small for God. God loves each person and cares about the cares and concerns of each person. If you are utterly destroyed by grief because your kitten has died, that is of the utmost importance to God, because God loves you and doesn't want to see you broken down by grief. As for the talks of world leaders, even though they both may be non-believers, as with many of the meetings in the Middle East, they may profess to be followers of the one true God by one name or another. But no one who believes in an all-seeing God would behave as any of these men do, with their cruelty to other humans and their destruction of the world's treasures and the earth's resources. It is taboo in Islam to harm any person for the purposes of war. A war captive killed to gain an advantage, a woman raped to gain advantage over their fighting men, is one of the most forbidden acts in all religions. But all men do it as an act of war. And all commanders plan it out now as a method of terrorizing the populace. Yet, these leaders profess it will never happen again. Odd then that it keeps happening over and over and over and over again. Rape is expressly forbidden in the Quran, and it is stated so clearly. So these so-called holy fighters are just so much fluff, so much crap. You are not a holy fighter. You're not a holy anything, except for you've got holes in your story. If you're a man just getting your rocks off at abusing women, justice has occurred in every war since the 18th century before Christ. God knows all, sees all, hears all, comprehends all, and will revenge those who violate his laws for personal gain or to satisfy personal fantasies upon the will of others. God will be a part of all major international conferences, but so too is the evil one and all of his followers. Humans are self-regulating, only so far as God is concerned. The evil one is not a hands-off cretin. God doesn't interfere in our world, but he does offer guidance and wisdom when asked. The evil one just keeps putting his demons and his possessed cretins into power. Or he puts hate-filled creatures into office. Wisdom for humans, then, is knowing when to act and when to ask God for help. So take your time with decisions. Think of the various angles. Ask for guidance, not for what you want, but ask for his help in finding the right answer for your people, your family, your team, your company, your community, city, county, state, or country. A wise person knows their limits and when and who to ask for help. God is always there for you, always loving you, willing to help you find the right answer. Not your answer, the right answer.